My name is Evelyn Marks. I'm 76, and I thought I was smarter than this. Really, I did. But nothing prepares you for the kind of fear that slams into your chest when you think your grandchild is in danger. And that's exactly what they used against me. My love for my grandson Tyler, who just turned 22 and has always been the golden boy of our family, sharp as a tack, always sending me silly memes and little, love you, grandma texts when I least expect them, especially since his parents split, and I sort of became his emotional anchor, and I remember the call like a trauma you can't shake, the phone ringing just after 6:30 a.m., when the sun had barely crawled through my blinds and I was still in my robe sipping chamomile, and this voice, shaky, breathless, just on the edge of breaking, saying, "Grandma, it's me. It's Tyler. Don't freak out, please. But I'm in trouble." And it sounded enough like him to twist my stomach into knots, and before I could say much more than, "What happened?" the call shifted and a new voice came on, lower, more official sounding, said he was Officer Daniels from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office, that Tyler had been in an accident late last night, that there was alcohol involved, but it wasn't his fault. He'd just been in the wrong place, wrong time, but the DA was trying to push felony charges, and if we wanted to keep this from ruining his record, we had to act quickly now. Here's the thing. I don't live in California. I live in a quiet little suburb outside Columbus, Ohio, and Tyler had just moved out west for grad school at UCLA, and the story, well, it didn't feel impossible. Because he's young and life's chaotic and kids don't always tell you when they're heading out to a party or giving someone a ride, and I remember my heart was pounding, my fingers shaking as I scribbled down bail amount, $9,800 on a sticky note. The voice saying something about a bondsman, a private arrangement, and how this had to stay confidential or it could compromise Tyler's legal outcome. And when I asked to speak to Tyler again, the officer said he was being processed and couldn't talk right now, but that Tyler had begged him to call me because Grandma would know what to do. And those words just gutted me, because they sounded like something he'd say, and that's how they got me, by speaking in his voice, by preying on that instinct you have to protect your own, even if it means going against your better judgment, even if it means driving half an hour to a bank I barely visit anymore, withdrawing almost $10,000 in cash, and following instructions to put it in a nondescript envelope and hand it to a courier at the Dollar General parking lot just off Route 62, a man who wore a ball cap and didn't say more than 3 words, and I even thanked him, God help me, thinking he was part of the system trying to help my grandson, and I drove home sick to my stomach, but also relieved, thinking I'd done the right thing, until 3 hours later when Tyler called me, really called me, from California, cheerful as ever, asking how my roses were doing, and if I'd seen the video he sent about that cat riding a Roomba. And I swear I went cold all over and couldn't even speak, just dropped the phone in my lap and stared at the TV screen, which was paused on a baking show like nothing had happened, like I hadn't just handed over my savings to a ghost with my grandson's voice. And that was the beginning of it. Not just of the scam, but of the shame, the disbelief, the way my own children looked at me when I told them what I'd done, like I was suddenly fragile, stupid, and I hated that more than anything, that I'd let someone in, that I'd failed. That I'd become what they always warned us about on the news and at the senior center, and I knew I couldn't just let it in like that, not with silence, not with me pretending I was okay. So I started writing everything down, every detail, every word, and I filed a police report, and I showed the bank teller the envelope I'd kept, even though it didn't have fingerprints or clues, and I sat down with Officer Reed from the local precinct and told him everything, and to his credit, he didn't treat me like I was just another old fool. He said this was happening everywhere, and that the best thing I could do now, besides hope for an investigation that probably wouldn't go far, was to speak up, to warn others, to get loud about it. Even if it meant exposing my own humiliation, because every time we stay quiet, the scammers win twice, and that's what this story is now, not just a confession, but a fight, because no one should have to learn the hard way that love, the deepest kind of love, can also be your greatest vulnerability. I wish I could tell you it ended there, that I learned my lesson, locked up my checkbook, and life went back to gardening and reading mystery novels. But trauma doesn't work like that, and neither do the people who caused it, because once they know you're vulnerable, it's like your number gets passed around like a poker chip at a backroom game. And 3 weeks after the Tyler incident, just when I was starting to sleep a little better and tell myself I'd done all I could, I got another call. This time it was a woman, polite, with a soft, Midwest accent, who said she was from the Fraud Victim Advocacy Center, that my case had been flagged for compensation eligibility due to a federal task force trying to recover losses from senior targeted scams. And Lord help me, I wanted to believe it. Wanted to believe that someone somewhere was taking this seriously, that maybe some of my money might be traced, or that the courier had been sloppy, left a camera trail. But what really hooked me was how kind she was, how she listened, said she'd reviewed my police report and understood how scary it must have been, and even shared a story about her own mother getting tricked by a Medicare phishing scam. And the next thing I knew, I was nodding along, confiding in her, not even realizing how much I was craving that reassurance until it was given so freely. And she told me that they were working with a special reimbursement fund backed by the Department of Justice and a consumer restitution firm in Virginia. But in order to process my claim, I had to verify a few things, and that's when she asked for details I had already shared in my police report, or so she claimed, like the exact day and time of the original scam, the amount, even the name of the officer I spoke to locally, which she somehow already knew, and it made her sound so credible, so official, and I thought maybe this was the universe giving me a second chance, until she gently explained that because the payout would be over $10,000, they needed to pre-validate my account by processing a refundable escrow fee of $850, just to ensure the reimbursement wasn't fraudulent on their end. And something in me paused then, a flicker of doubt maybe, but she caught it, said it was just like the process insurance companies use when releasing large settlements. And she even emailed me a PDF document with DOJ logos and a fake signature from someone called Special Claims Officer Helen Myers. And I remember staring at that email on my old laptop, squinting at the watermark, thinking it looked just real enough. And even though I felt a knot twisting in my gut, I told myself this was different. This was after the scam, not part of it. And so I went ahead and transferred the $850 to a secure escrow account through a payment app one didn't fully understand. And the worst part, the part that still makes my throat close, is that I didn't tell anyone, not even Tyler, because I didn't want him to know I was still caught up in this mess, still chasing some faint hope of justice. And for a little while, I believed I'd done the right thing again, because the woman, Sarah, she said her name was, kept me updated with polite emails, and even called back to say the payout had been approved. But there was a processing delay due to a flagged discrepancy with my social security number. And that's when I finally told my daughter Beth. And I'll never forget the look on her face, like I'd just told her I'd started gambling or lost my memory. And she said, "Mom, you didn't give them your social, did you?" And when I said, "Only the last 4 digits," she closed her eyes and exhaled in a way that broke me, because I could feel the shift in her right then, like I'd crossed some invisible line from independent to fragile, from trusted to watched, and it made me angrier than I've been in years. Not just at the scammers, but at myself, for needing this so badly that I didn't see what was right in front of me. And that's when we called Officer Reed again. And when we told him about the second scam, he didn't even flinch. He said it was common, that once you're on the list, they keep targeting you, especially with these fake recovery scams. And I could see the guilt in Beth's eyes too, like she'd failed me by not locking things down after the first time. But it wasn't her fault. I'd been secretive, prideful, too ashamed to let anyone see how easily I'd been drawn in again. And that's when Beth and Officer Reed both suggested we sit down with a cybersecurity consultant named Marcus, a young man in his 30s who looked like he should be fixing Wi-Fi routers at a Starbucks, but who turned out to be sharp as a tack and kind in the way you want people to be when you're feeling broken. And he spent 3 hours going through my laptop, my phone, every trace of the emails and apps I'd used, and what he found stunned me: keyloggers, screen trackers, and signs that my devices had been remotely accessed through a fake customer support app I'd downloaded after Sarah helped me check the escrow process. And I just sat there with my hands folded while he spoke like a surgeon explaining how far the cancer had spread. And by the end, we knew what had to happen. New bank accounts, new devices, a fraud alert placed with the credit bureaus, and the hardest pill of all, changing my phone number, the one I'd had since 1992, because it was now compromised, sold off to a world I didn't understand, full of people who saw me not as Evelyn Marks, former high school librarian and grandmother of 3, but as a wallet wrapped in skin and grief. And the worst wasn't even losing the money, not really, but feeling like a fool in my own skin, Like every word I'd ever taught about critical thinking had vanished the moment someone said, "Grandma, it's me." And that's when Marcus said something that shifted my thinking. "It's not stupidity, Mrs. Marks, it's empathy. They weaponize the parts of you that make you human." And that was the first time I didn't feel stupid, just hurt, deeply and personally, and I realized I had a choice. To let this destroy my sense of self, or to do something with it, to speak louder, even if my voice shook, and I didn't know then how far I'd go. But something had been lit inside me, something the scammers hadn't counted on, my need to protect not just my family, but others, people like me, people they hadn't reached yet. After the dust settled and the bank confirmed what I already knew, that the money was long gone, funneled through a maze of transfers I'd never trace, I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out the center of me and left the shell to sit in the same quiet house where George used to hum as he read the paper. And that silence, more than anything, is what made me angry, because it was never really about the money, not entirely. It was about how small and foolish they made me feel, how easily they twisted my love for Tyler into a weapon I used against myself. And I couldn't bear the thought that they might do it again to someone else, someone who wouldn't even have a grandson to verify the lie with. So I called Marcus, and he said the senior center would be thrilled to host a seminar. And within 2 weeks I was standing in front of 30 plastic chairs with a trembling voice, telling the whole story, from the shaky call to the phony Sarah. And when I finished, I looked out and saw tears in people's eyes, nods, even a few gasps, and afterward, a woman came up and gripped my hand like it was a lifeline and said, "I thought I was the only one." And that broke something open in me that hadn't been touched in years. Community, purpose, maybe even pride. And from there, things moved fast. Marcus and I partnered with the local PD to create a pamphlet. Beth helped me start a little Facebook group called Not on My Watch. And Tyler, bless him, even got his high school to host a Scam Awareness Week, with me as the keynote speaker. Imagine that, a retired dental hygienist with a fear of microphones suddenly standing in front of teenagers explaining how fast your life can change with one wrong decision and a trusting heart. And I won't say the pain went away, but it shifted, transformed, became something I could carry instead of something that crushed me. And though the scammers were never caught, Officer Reed said these outfits are like shadows, always moving. I did get one small moment of victory. Months later, I got another call, this time a different voice, same script. "Grandma, I'm in trouble." And I calmly said, "You've called the wrong woman." Then hung up and stared at the receiver like I'd just disarmed a bomb. And in a way, maybe I had, because they want us to be scared, to be quiet, to feel alone. But I found my voice again. And if even one person hears it and pauses before they send that wire or answer that call, then maybe losing $10,000 wasn't the worst thing that happened to me. Maybe the worst thing would have been staying silent.